Can you just verify for me that the those who signed up online have been able to join our meeting as well? Okay. Excellent. Okay, I'll go ahead and get started. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us. I'd like to just start with a few housekeeping items before we begin our discussion. To minimize the background noise from online participants, we have you in mute, but at any time that you'd like to speak, if you could please use the raise hand icon and we will activate your microphone for you. Or if you have any comments or questions, you should feel free to put those over in the chat section. We have a document for you over in the chat section that we've also handed out to participants today. That is the construction business guide for this project, and it's something that we will be going over in this meeting. Also, since this is a hybrid meeting, we have people who are here in person as well. And we will be handing you a microphone when you speak, because the participants online won't be able to hear you unless we give you that microphone. And the same goes for our in-person panelists. If you're responding to a question, if you could please use the nearest microphone so that the people online can hear you. Following this meeting, there will be a recording that will be posted on the project website, and a link will be sent out to everyone on our email list of business and property owners, as well as a Q&A document will be prepared and distributed. Hi, John. And it will be posted on the For Business page of the One Washington Place Project website, which is onewashingtonplaceproject.com. For any of those that I may not have met, my name is Laura Newman. I'm the city administrator, and I'd like to introduce the panelists for today's conversation. From the city of Batavia, online participating is Shannon Jarmus, she's our economic development manager, and Gary Holm, our director of public works. Jeff Albertson, our building commissioner, is here with us this morning, all the way at the end of the table there. We also have Anthony Isom, who is assistant to the city administrator in the back of the room there. He's helping me out with the monitoring the chat section and running the meeting. And then also Griffin Price, our communications manager, is also sitting over at the table. And of course, last but not least, the mayor of this fair city, Mayor Jeffrey D. Schielke. Thank you for joining us today. And we also have a few aldermen joining us as well. Leah Lehman is alderman for Ward 2. Tom Connolly is alderman for Ward 4. And Alan Wolf is alderman for Ward 2 as well. Also from Shodine Group, the developer of One Washington Place project, we have Dave Patzelt, president of Shodine Group, and Jerry Hubby, project manager for Shodine Group, and also project manager for the construction of One Washington Place. I'd like to start out by just reminding everyone of the positive benefits that the city of Batavia expects to experience as a result of this project. The city of Batavia, but also business owners and property owners as well. High density development such as this is a good way to increase property value, which is a benefit to building owners, because the cost of government every year increases. And we do have, new subdivisions being built, but from a city's perspective, subdivisions usually represent kind of a zero-sum game, because they require us to build a number of public roads and a lot of infrastructure that requires ongoing maintenance. High density development creates a tremendous amount of property value without the same drain on public resources, and that therefore is a benefit to all property owners in the city of Batavia. It'll bring hundreds of new residents to our downtown that will be hopefully customers of your businesses. We'll have 16,000 square feet of new retail that's coming in, allowing for more businesses in our downtown to attract more customers to come in where there's a density of retail, but hopefully they'll spend longer and they'll get hungry and thirsty. Or they'll see that there's a cute bookshop and stop in to shop. And last but not least, the 331 space parking garage which I think will be surface parking that we have today. But, we do have the Larsen Becker parking lot that we are going to keep online to make sure that that 331 space parking garage provides sufficient parking for our downtown parking needs. And before I begin, I just, once again, wanted to address the elephant in the room as to why we're meeting Christmas week. And I did send out an email to everyone, and I realized that particularly for retail and for food and beverage establishments, this holiday week, it was very difficult for people to make time to come into this meeting. Honestly, we did it for you. We know that you want information shared with you as soon as possible. And with the construction coming up so soon, we wanted to make sure that we could share this information as soon as possible. But it isn't a one-time thing either. And so if there are those who are unable to make the meeting today, we are going to set up another meeting in the future. We've got the recorded information, we've got the written Q&A, and last but not least, and to all of you who are attending today as well, we would be happy to meet with you on an individual basis. If there are questions that you have or issues that you face that are not addressed in today's meeting, we definitely want to know those and try to work together to manage those during the construction process. So the next thing that I think is on everyone's mind is, why has the start of construction of the project potentially moved up 6 weeks from when we previously expected it to start? In our last meeting in February, we were all gathered here. We were talking about the construction starting in March, and now we expect that it might be starting in mid-January. So I'll begin by saying that it was last September when City Council voted on the amendment that would allow this project to move forward. And they made it very clear in their approval of that amendment that there were going to be very specific deadlines that the developer had to meet. And Mr. Patzell stood here at this podium and he made a commitment that those deadlines would be met. And the penalty for those deadlines not being met was that the project would be terminated. So ever since then, I think the developer has made a commitment and has been actually accomplishing things ahead of schedule than when we first expected them. For instance, providing us with the application for building permit and the construction plans about a week before Thanksgiving, I believe. But if there are other issues that affected the moving up of the construction schedule, I wanted to offer you the opportunity maybe to just briefly give some details on why that was.
Okay. Would you like to do it now?
Yes, please.
Is this on?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Thank you, Laura. Yes, there have been some items on the schedule that have been expedited. The biggest key for us has been the financing for the project. As we know that, or if you've attended some of the prior public hearing meetings, we've been working with our lender, Fifth Third Bank, and Fifth Third Bank has agreed to a target date of closing on the loan for the project, for the financing, on 1/4 of 22. So that immediately after the New Year holiday. So in advance of that happening, in order for the loan to be tied to a piece of property and be tied to Shodine, we need to have title to the property. So at the city council meeting on 1/3, there's going to be an item on the agenda, in essence, approving the deed to convey the land to the developer, so that then the following day, the lender can close on the loan for the project. Knowing that once that occurs, that we then have a lender involved, we can then issue the formal notice to proceed to the city to proceed with the sale of the bonds that provide the TIF increment funding for the project. So knowing that all those items were going to be occurring, the thought is that we'd also like to tell our precaster to start making the precast pieces for the project. And we had set that a similar date, that first week in January, to notify him of those dates, which fits in with his schedule to manufacture the pieces on what is commonly called bedtime. Bedtime meaning the precast beds in the factory where they're casting the concrete. They have availability, us slotted in the manufacturing process of those concrete beds. So if I use the term bedtime, that's what I'm referring to. Not that I'm looking to head for a nap. So those are really some key elements to the project that we've been hearing about for a long time, mainly financing. How does the project get paid for? And so with those being able to be expedited in the schedule, we wanted to go ahead and expedite the construction of the schedule. So hopefully.
Thank you very much for the explanation. I do have one correction that will help the process go smoother. It doesn't actually require an additional city council vote, because in approving the RDA itself, the language approved the transfer of the deed of the property. So that an additional
So
decision
the
there
deed
will
does not
be
need to go
necessary.
before council on the.
It does not.
Okay, thank you.
You know, I know this comes as a surprise, this moving up of the schedule, and it came as a big surprise to the city as well. And everyone who knows me knows that I try to look on the bright side of things, but I really do think that there is some bright side to being able to start this construction earlier. Using more of the first winter months for construction. The demolition and the excavation part of this project, correct me if I'm wrong, are probably the dirtiest part of the construction project. And the months from January to March are typically the slowest business months for us downtown. And so, and plus it being winter, I think that it would, you know, keep down on the way that the dirt spreads around as well. And also, if we're able to, because we started so early in the year, if we can get the project under roof, which means that the parking deck gets built and the construction above can at least get the studs up and the roof covering it and the outside walls constructed, that means that Shoting Group can work through that entire winter, continuing to do construction on the building, as opposed to having to shut it down for the winter and come back the following spring and start up again. And having those, you know, additional 3 or 4 months to be able to continue construction means that the project is going to be finished all that sooner. And the sooner it's done, the better. And it would be really nice if at some point in 2023 that we're able to, you know, see that fence come down and State Street be opened again so that everyone can access that 331 space public parking garage. So we know that moving up this schedule though has caused you a lot of stress, and we want to work with you and help your businesses and your customers to adjust to life during construction. We know that signage is going to be extremely important, both letting people know that it's not a North River Street Road construction project, that all of those businesses are still open and approachable, and also to direct customers to your public parking. And then the other thing that is going to be critical is that we have programs, campaigns to assist your businesses. Both to generate customer traffic to your doors, maybe assist you with additional, you know, expenses related to having to conduct your business during this construction period. And so one of the things that we have done initially is develop this construction guide, but we would also like to establish some committees to work on this, and certainly Main Street and the chamber and staff at the city are going to be on those committees, but we would love to have some members of the business community. And I know that as business owners that you are all extremely busy just doing what is necessary to conduct your business. So maybe if you have a key employee that you'd like to send to be part of that committee to help us work on those things. Main Street is going to assist us with coordination of that. So if you know of people who want to participate, feel free to reach out to me or to reach out to Beth Walker, who I failed to introduce today. I'm sorry, Beth. Okay. Beth is here from Main Street. So as you came in, we handed out the construction guide. And if you're online, you should have a copy of that in the chat section that you can open up. And I just wanted to go through some of the areas that are contained in that business guide. They'll have a project overview and a section that talks about business assistance and the parking map. Here, I just wanted to take a look at the 3 phases of construction. In the first phase, we're going to put up that 6-foot fence that'll go around to provide safety and security on the site. This is when we're going to be doing the remaining demolition work, take down the public parking deck. There are some foundations that are still there. We'll be doing the environmental remediation, which will be done at the same time as the site grading. So area by area, we'll go to determine what kind of material that we're excavating. The part that has the contamination will need to go to a special landfill site. We have received a verbal confirmation from our environmental consultants that the levels of contamination are the same or lower in all of the wells that they monitored on the project, and we expect that report this week in writing. The first phase of the project is expected to take about 4 months, and then we move into phase 2 after the foundations have cured. Then these precast concrete slabs are going to be coming, and it's going to be like a Lego project. We're going to build a parking garage with the Legos, and that is probably going to happen over the course of the next 6 months. And then we can move into phase 3, which is building the residential and retail portions of the project. So the developer's goal is, again, to get under roof in the winter of 2022 to 2023 so that they can continue with the interior construction and hopefully start leasing the building beginning sometime in 2023. Keep thinking I can use the mouse, but that's the podium computer. There are 2 contacts here. We're thinking of, coming up with, if it's this, contact this person, and giving you a list of 12 different people that you could contact. But we thought we'd keep it simple. So Jerry Hubby is the project manager for Shodine. If it is an issue that is having to do with the construction, then that would be your point of contact. If it's anything else, Shannon Malik Jarmus is our economic development manager, and you can reach her at the number presented, 630-454-2720. And then, of course, Shannon might not be exactly the person who can answer your question, but she will follow up with whomever at the city can address that issue. And then Shannon did a nice job here of putting together a number of different resources for businesses. Of course, Batavia Chamber of Commerce and Batavia Main Street, whom I'm sure everyone is very familiar with the services that they provide and the support and programming that they have to support our local businesses. But some others that you may not have in mind are the Aurora Area Convention and Visitors Bureau. If you are having events, you can contact them and you can put your events into their calendar. There are 10 different municipalities that are part of that guide that they have, and it's a great resource. It's at every hotel throughout the area, and so it kind of casts your net broad and wide. Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity have many programs, particularly during COVID, available, grants, and also other assistance services. SCORE Fox Valley is a part of the Small Business Administration. They offer business advice and counseling. And if anybody knows Harriet Parker from Waubonsee Community College's Small Business Development Center, she is wonderful. She will come in and assist you, look over your business plan, give you marketing ideas, and she acts as a coach. And it's a really great resource. You know, all of us pay for Waubonsee Community College as part of our tax bill. And if there are any resources available for you to use as part of, you know, getting value back from those tax dollars, I think you should reach out and use those. And it's sometimes an underutilized area. And then the U.S. Small Business Association and the Aurora Women's Business Development Center. During the project, we will have on-site construction progress meetings Friday at 9:00 a.m. on the east side of the walking bridge on North River Street. We had done these before. I think we had done them at like Thursdays at 2 or something like that previously, when we anticipated that construction would be beginning in 2018. But we will have those progress meetings, and then every week we will have, if you're signed up for the email alerts on the project website, you'll also receive an update that way as well. And then the parking map. And we include a QR code for the parking map because we encourage all businesses to add that to their website, so that if customers are visiting their website, they can just click on that QR code or map, and they'll know exactly where public parking is available downtown. And in anticipation of this project, back in 2017, the city of Batavia purchased the Larsen properties, which are the parking lot, and also some additional land, which is on the east side of North River Street, for the purpose of providing substitute parking for all of the parking that is going to be taken offline, the public parking deck, the parking area that was previously associated with the First Baptist Church. But we will, as I mentioned before, keep that online even after the public parking garage gets built, so that we make sure that we are providing adequate parking for the demands of our downtown. I'm sure I covered everything. Yes, so I've covered everything that I wanted to make sure that I let you know about, but this is also an opportunity for people to ask questions, address concerns, just let us know what your, fears and stressors are about this, to see if we can help you address those, and let you know that we want to work together with you, because this has always been Batavia's like superpower, is that we are a community. And whenever there have been needs in our community, Batavians come together and they rise up to the occasion, and they work together on problems to solve them. So that's what we would like to do with all of you. So with that, if anybody has a question, Griffin will bring the microphone around to you. Anybody here in person? John, we need you to speak in the microphone so that the people online can hear you.
Thank you very much. John Hamill from Bar Evolution. So I've said this at probably every opportunity I could, and that's the egress on State Street. I still have a problem with closing that street down for multiple reasons. One, first of all, it's egress for our customers. If somebody comes down River Street, which now is looking to be turned into a one-way south street, once they get past whatever the street is to the west, they can't, to the north, I'm sorry, they can't turn around. There's no place to turn around except for maybe in the municipal parking lot. I know I've watched developments done. I've worked with developers. I know how it is difficult for staging. I still believe that if you cut out the curb at State and River, make that a one-way western egress or eastern egress, you can still provide the exit onto 25 instead of going west on Wilson, having to do a U-turn somewhere down the road to come back and go east. A lot of people in Batavia who even live here mess that up. So I want to know if it's possible to adjust what you're doing to an extent to create a eastbound exit off of River onto State, cutting out that curb by Tusk and be able to do that.
Thank you for your comment. We have reviewed that on more than one occasion. There's been several requests from city staff to see if there was anything that we could accommodate in that. We want to maintain the sidewalk on the north side of State open at all time. So that has to remain open. And we are then also concerned about traffic, I'll call it public traffic, that may follow a truck or a delivery vehicle coming into the construction site onto State Street. And that will simply create, we believe, will create a lot of confusion for the motoring public. So we do not see any way of keeping State Street open in either direction during construction. Perhaps when the roof is on the building and more of the construction is internal to the building, it could then be opened, but we'll evaluate that as construction progresses throughout the project.
Why does State Street have to be your egress off of the site? Why can't you egress onto River going north only?
That-
If your trucks come in on the, on the river turn. I've been in Chicago. I've worked with people who work in Chicago and have watched projects being done and they don't even close the sidewalks off. So, and the sidewalk to the north of your property on a regular basis is used by 4 people a day. I think you could still have that one lane to be able to get in and out. You guys are going to take your trucks in and out of an area that's already fenced in. If you fence in into State Street 2/3 of the way over and create one lane in, you still have egress for your trucks with nobody going behind them.
The River Lane, working with city staff, the desire is to keep construction traffic off of River Lane as much as possible. And that we know that we're going to have some sidewalk closure along, I'll call it the existing parking deck that may need to get closed, but we don't want to have any construction traffic on River Lane from State Street south to Wilson. So we know we can't come in off of Washington, and we know that we're going to be very restricted along Wilson. So really, our main delivery entrance and for all of the traffic is going to end up coming in off of State Street.
You are going to be digging into the side of the hill going from River up to 25, correct? The grade is going to be at the River Street level. Is that accurate?
The retail stores that are on River will be at will meet the existing grade of River of that floor.
Where's the
correct?
entrance for the parking garage? Halfway up
Where
State Street,
the entrance for,
the parking deck.
so there's 2 entrances for the parking deck. One is, I'm going to say 1/3 or 1/4 of the way east on State Street off of east of River. And then the second entrance to the upper level deck is 3/4 of the way up east on State Street before you get to
So
Washington.
you have 2 levels going into State Street at entrance into State Street for the parking deck.
Correct.
The deck is going to sit on top of the retail space, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and you're going to excavate, how far are you excavating into near 25? Are you excavating all the way down to the River Street? Are you excavating at,
Yes.
okay. So you have a lot of space within that excavation space to be able to turn trucks once you get your levels down. Once you start excavating you're starting at River moving east, correct? With your excavation, are you're excavating existing parking deck, excavating into the hill, and then over to 25, over to Wilson 25, correct? You're starting at the bottom working up. So are you starting?
No, so unfortunately, the environmental contamination, first off is the demolition. So you're correct that the parking garage, the existing parking garage will come down, and then the various foundations that are throughout the site will come down. So they're somewhat scattered in the asphalt that is there in the concrete sidewalk. So it's going to be a scattered throughout the entire site, the initial demolition. Then the environmental contamination excavation will begin. And that is, again, I'll refer to that as scattered. as wherever that environmental, those issues are, is where that excavation will be. But then generally the sequence of construction will be from the south, working our way towards the north, so that we're exiting out onto State Street. So vehicle delivery materials, everything will be coming in off of State Street and will be exiting out onto State Street. And again, as I said, the main concern is that construction traffic in and out of the construction zone onto State Street. We can't have the motoring public interfering or getting caught up or inside a construction zone. It will not work.
Okay, I still think there's a way, but obviously that the decision for that's been made. My employee, so the one business that sticks out in my mind is Tusk Thai, who, because of COVID and because of culture, have had to go to pickup only. They have drive up service. That's all they have. They've talked about opening up their dining, but again, you're looking at a different culture, different thought on COVID than maybe some other persons. My concern for them is, how do they get their people to be able to drive up to their curb? And they live on the east side of Batavia. They're going to do a U-turn in the middle of the street, and they're going to go back to the next street north and then exit out onto 25.
I think that would only be if at such time as North River Street is made exclusively southbound. When it's open and bi-directional, you could come up from Wilson Street and headed northbound and park adjacent to the curb on the west side of their building for pickup.
Understood that, but again, with other meetings that we've discussed, that is quickly potentially going to be done sooner than later is the southbound. Is that fair to say?
I think it should be a consideration whether that's done, how it affects the businesses. Right now, the decision was made to move forward with seeing if IDOT would provide us with a permit to do it, but we still can decide not to do it or to wait to do it until after the construction. And that was part of the discussion that City Council had, was let's move forward with applying for the permit. But as to when we actually construct the one-way, there may be other considerations that we have.
Good. I've gone through, like I said, a lot of construction. I actually ran construction jobs for different businesses that I ran. I moved into Batavia as a business owner back when they had River Street closed off to create what it is today. Developed a good relationship with the project manager, made that where at many times that street was closed completely off to any persons. I had at one point had to have customers walk down the ramp to the south of my building, walk across the parking lot, up the stairs, come across the front of the building, down the stairs to get in for lunch. So I'm fully aware of the inconvenience that construction makes. I have to say, I understand this is going to be great for the city of Batavia. I liken this project to a homeowner who has a beautiful park being built across the street that's going to increase his property value substantially. But in that process, they're going to park a semi truck in front of the house. And every day that you get up, you have to figure out how to get out of your house, how to get back in. You're going to have to deal with the noise and the sound and the pollution coming from that project. We as business owners implore you to do everything in your power, not only to, make the project run fast, make it clean, all the other stuff. Communicate with us on a daily basis if necessary. Put yourselves in our shoes coming out of the worst possible business cycle you could have as a restaurateur, a bookshelf owner, a tea tree owner with COVID. And despite the positives of this project, the fact that we're going to be looking at another 16 to 24 months, not excluding the fact that COVID again is starting to affect businesses. I own Pal Joey's. In the last 2 weeks, I've had countless cancellations of events and parties because of the fear of COVID, because of the spread of COVID. This is just another super tough spot for us as business owners to be in. Every day I figure out how I'm trying to pay my bills. I know other businesses in COVID did very well. I know construction companies fared better in some ways than others. I can't speak for yours. I don't know your business. So understanding that on a daily basis, everybody in this room, everybody online who owns these small businesses are trying to figure out how to keep the lights on and the doors open, because River Street, as beautiful of a street as it is a tough pull when it's not 80 degrees and sunny outside. And that's the case for all businesses in Batavia. So I will volunteer, and if anybody else would like to join me, is to be a liaison with you, who are the project manager, to make sure that this is as painful as a process as it can be for us.
I think you mean painless,
I said painless.
but it was probably in your mind painful.
Well, it's going to be both.
It is.
And having your crews, I don't know what you expect as your crews, having those people and telling them, you need to support the businesses that are adjacent to this community. Go to Katrina's and get a massage. Buy gift cards for your staff, for your employees, to go out to these businesses and spend money that they desperately need to get this going. In meetings in the past, I know there was one that was directed to you, Dave, was, hey, we're putting a lot of money into this project. Why don't you do something for us? Why don't you buy us an ambulance? And your reply was, well, you put up money and I'll put up money. It's fair, understand that, but you guys are going to have a lot of people working on this project. It's my expectation that they are going to support the businesses within that project.
Mhm.
And if you can facilitate that, it's going to make this a little less painful than it could potentially be.
Right.
So I support the project in that it will bring something to the city. It'll bring something to the businesses downtown. But getting to that finish line after everything that we've gone through and continue to go through is going to be a huge, huge pull.
Mhm.
Well, I applaud you and thank you for willing to volunteer and be a liaison. And we look forward to participating with the entire community on this project. And I believe that I have said in other public meetings, and I again reiterate that during the construction, you're going to see anywhere from, depending on what is happening in the building, anywhere from 25 to 100 people working in that project. And most recently, when we did the Oswego project, we know that there were local businesses, one in particular that took full advantage of those people, and they were delivering 50 lunches a day to the project. What better opportunity than to partner with those businesses right along River Lane or along Wilson Street that would want to participate? The last thing that I would want to see is common term is a roach coach pulling in a catering truck, if you would, that's pulling in from somewhere from out of town, serving those construction workers. So that would be my first request, is that, are there any restaurants, anybody that's serving coffee, breakfast, et cetera, that wants to get involved? And as long as there is a routine that can be established, it works well, where that lunch or meals, food, drink are provided at a set time of day that the workers can count on, that it's there every day. So we're not planning this project to try to run anybody out of business. We want to cooperate with everybody, especially our neighbors. That the main reason why we think this project and this product can work there is because it's in the downtown. But one of the tight difficulties of that is constructing it in a downtown. But again, this product needs to be in the downtown and would not work well out on Fabian Parkway, just freestanding all by itself. So thank you, and we look forward to that. And again, I reiterate, if the business community can get together, and if there's anybody that wants to participate in providing meals, food, and drink to all of those workers, we would certainly welcome that.
We need you to talk in the microphone so that people online can hear James.
That's if these places are able to staff, especially during the rise of Omicron. I mean, I know he's had a hard time with staff at his place. Most of the businesses down there, when I'm there early during the day, they can't even be open because of staffing.
Mhm.
So there is, what I'm saying is there has to be a reexamination, because prior experiences in Oswego don't really matter during a pandemic. Okay, because you have to look at the new factors and what you're dealing with now. As what you've done before in past years, as we say, Batavia rallies and stuff like that. The only thing the thing I notice is that we're in a new, I don't even want to say new normal, because just that word makes me want to throw up. But there's a lot of factors involved. And that's why I have said publicly that this could be rather disastrous, given the timing. I'm not saying the project is bad. I haven't said that it's awful. It's going to be good eventually. But right now, for the next, 2 years, it's going to be incredibly tough for any of us that are down there, because you already have people within the town who thought that River Street was closed because they were tearing it up. I heard that time and time again. And the lack of flexibility to understand the optics of how River Street was closed. We were told that was the safest way for it to be.
It
But-
was the legal way for it. to
Well, okay,
be.
well, I heard about I heard from 3 other sources that there were alternatives, including people that have worked in other towns during stuff like this. Aurora had a completely different looking street closure. I saw the pictures, looked nothing like what we had.
And it was
I understand
probably
it's
their
legal, but
fault.
there was also other legal alternatives. I heard about these things.
Mhm.
They could have been done, but they weren't. So the optics made it look like River Street was done for. And then the optics of Water Street's open, but nobody thought about the optics of what River Street looked like. These are the different influences that affect people's impression. So when you have construction in an area that people already think is under construction, it's going to take a lot of messaging and harder work than in prior years. Not only do you have a construction, but you have what we have right now. I'm even debating whether I want to have an event I'm supposed to have on the 3rd because of everything that's going on. So there are a lot of factors that come into play here. And I'm really worried for everybody else. I could make it, but I'm really worried, and I'm not going to make it if they don't make it. They're my number one concern right now, not myself. And I'm really worried, especially for John and everything he does, and Melissa. So if we could be a little bit more mindful of the current situation and not past experiences in other towns, that would be incredibly helpful.
Okay, a couple of things there. The Oswego project actually was under construction during COVID in 2020. And so there were the similar, in fact, businesses were shut down altogether and really didn't have any staff. But I think by coordinating, so there's an opportunity. And so we can have conversations about opportunities for while things are bad, is there some opportunity knowing that there's going to be 50 people on site who need to eat lunch? If you knew that ahead of time, is there some way that you could prepare boxed lunches at a different time of the day and then bring them over to the, I'm looking for ways where this is going to be a benefit to you, not that it's harmful to you. You don't have to come up with a way to support them if that's difficult for your business. But to John's point, look, the gift cards or the massages, it's not just about breakfasts and lunches. We can think of creative ways to tap into the fact that there will be customers, although they're constructing an apartment building, they're still customers. And maybe we can find ways to provide economic support to our businesses that are affected by construction. The other thing that I just need to correct is that it wasn't a choice of the city of Batavia to put type 3 barricades up on the south end of North River Street. That intersection is under the control of the Illinois Department of Transportation. And in order for us to close the street, it's required that we obtain a permit from IDOT, and IDOT requires those types of barricades to be used. You may see different types of barricading being used in other municipalities. I will guarantee that that is not a state route. And that where it's your city streets, you can choose to use whatever barricades you want to. The city of Batavia is going to choose to follow the Federal Highway Authority's recommended barriers, because number one, they're who dictate what the standards for safety are. And if you choose not to follow those and someone gets hurt, that's a huge liability for the taxpayers of the city of Batavia. So those barriers, they're ugly. I agree with you. And I think that's the reason why city council looked at changing the road to one way, was so that we could do something different that looks a lot more pleasing to the eye, because we know that that would be better for businesses. And it does look like there's a road construction project when there's a type 3 barricade there. I agree with you. Any other questions in the room, or we'll go to online questions? Oh, Leah?
I just have two just really short comments. I just wanted to let the business owners know that the alderman did request that we be on all future communications from the city, so that we are abreast of everything that is happening also. And then I was also just I want to make a comment that I don't think we should just put it on the Shodine workers to be supporting these businesses. I think city staff should be making an effort to walk over the Peace Bridge and go support those local businesses also, and our community. And I know
Yes.
the chamber and Batavia Main Street are going to
Absolutely.
be working directly with the businesses to figure out how to get the community to support, even if it's not obvious how to get down there. They're going to make it obvious. They're going to communicate. They're going to talk about how to walk, how to park, how to drive, because it is our responsibility to keep these businesses not only open, but thriving. So just want you guys to know that. And the more communication we can have, even with getting the businesses together, I know you guys already have, but what to do with River Street? Is it better to keep it open both ways? I think that still needs to be discussed. So more in depth. And I know some of us on city council want to meet with you guys personally in January. So we're going to make that happen also. Great.
Sorry, I had one more comment. So when I was a kid, my dad used to talk about a company called Burma Shave. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of it, but it was a shaving company, and their signage, they would have signs along highways where they would start at a mile, and every mile they'd have another sign. And at the end of all these like little catchwords or whatever, it had the word Burma Shave. And I always thought, I mean, this is, when my dad, talked about that when he was a kid. So obviously it's old, but an approach to signage, I think, and communication with everything you guys are talking about. And I know maybe this isn't the right time to talk about it, but I'm not asking for an answer. But when it comes to how we're going to let people know that the businesses and the road is open for River Street, is to have something that is further along down the road that allows people to see, because everybody knows when you see a sign, you're on it and then you're past it. And most of the time you're not even reading it. So the more opportunity you have for somebody to come up with, know that, hey, in 20 feet, or, and that's an exaggeration, but, along 25, along Wilson Street, along 25 North and 25 South, having signage that directs people to those businesses would be helpful.
And those are just the type of ideas, John, that I knew would come from this group. I'm wired like a city administrator. You are wired like an entrepreneur and someone who attracts people to your business. And so I love that idea. Keep them coming.
And I also think that there needs to be a reexamination of some of the things that have been said about business opposition. Our business opposition is concern. It is not lumping us in with anybody that doesn't want this project to go forward because they don't want their taxes raised. There's a huge difference between that. So if that, the messaging that happens sometimes is that if we speak out, we're lumped in with this weird segment of society or weird segment of Batavia that has this opposition. We're not, we're actually concerned we're there.
Mhm.
But then in the same regard, I mean, for me personally, and I mean, I've been open since March of 2018. Let me think here. I've had 2 aldermen in my shop. Her consistently because she's cool and she's got the best coffee in Batavia. And the other one is Keenan. And so between that and then the statements that are made sometimes at city meetings where it's the same people that are speaking in its opposition shows a lack of awareness of what's really happening in the heartbeat of your town. The fact that that there have been people that have spoken up for businesses and have a heart for business and that are critiqued as having a conflict of interest. To me, that person has more, somebody that does those kinds of things has more to offer Batavia than a lot of other people that are speaking down to businesses. So there needs to be a reexamination of that thought process and attitude because it makes me, for one, not want to be a part of that kind of thing. If anytime I go, hey, wait a minute, it's seen as an opposition. And that particular instance, these summation of instances lend themselves to the thought process that we're going to control the narrative and we're going to go and move ahead no matter what the opposition or no matter who speaks out on what. And that's not going to work. It's going to lend itself to, it's not going to work for all of us businesses to thrive during these 2 incredible obstacles we're going to have to go through. Number 1, the pandemic, number 2, the construction. So if we could start maybe changing the way we see business communication, that would be really, really good for all of us.
So we really didn't have the approach here today that we are facing people who are opposed to the project, because unanimously we have heard from all of you to say it would be great if somebody could just take a magic wand and go like that and the project's built. What we wanted to address was the concern that all of you have, as you know, because we can't use our magic wand. If you use the magic wand, would our business be here if we had to go through all of this construction? And so we want to work on the issues that your businesses face because of the construction and work together on those problems to make sure that your business survives this construction period and can enjoy the benefits of the project. So we're not taking an approach that we think that any of you are opposed to the project itself. We just want to help you address the issues that construction, because the reality is the project is getting built. We're sort of past the talking about whether people are opposed or in favor of it, because the decision has been made to go forward with it. Right now, we need to rally together and make sure that all of our wonderful small business community, who has seen incredible growth just in the last couple of years, who've seen incredible growth in the period of COVID. Yeah, I mean, I think it's just amazing. I think it's attributable to the business owners themselves and what I've been talking about, the fact that Batavians rise to the occasion when they know that businesses need support. Saw them do it time and time again over the last few years. So we're not talking from a position of trying to convince somebody of something that they're opposed to. We're working on problems and trying to find solutions together. Are there any, oh, go ahead, Missy.
Dave, this is for you. I haven't heard your answer and I know that this is months away, but we have an event on Saturday mornings that brings thousands of people down. My business definitely flourishes from it, and I want to know what your intentions are to make sure that, for lack of better words, that it's uninterrupted. So from 8 until noon during farmers markets, what are your intentions of working on that road on those days during the summer months?
So again, along, along the east side of River Lane, we will have a fence that is, I'm going to say, close to the parking structure. And we're trying to keep as much of River Lane open as possible. So you may see over the course of time, such as initial demolition, when that garage is coming down, that fence may have to be pulled out a little bit further west to make sure that there's enough, I'll call it safe zone, to where the structure is coming down. Then when the structure comes down, the fence could be pulled back to the east, opening up more of River Lane. Then when the excavation and the foundation needs to go in along there, the fence again may be pulled a little bit further west. And then once the foundations are in, it'll be pulled back. To
I
the
think I'm
east.
more talking about the working during those hours. Are we going to have a lot of construction, noise, things like that during the 8 to 12 hours on a Saturday morning?
So we plan to work 6 days a week. There will be some work going on 7 days a week. We are aware of the ordinances for noise. I think we'll have to take some additional precaution of the days that the farmer's market is going on, that we will take precaution to try to avoid the noisier activities that would disturb the farmer's market, such as we know that we're going to be doing bedrock removal. Bedrock removal is a very noisy operation where it's constant jackhammering. So that will be something we would want to work with you, with the community, that, okay, this Saturday is farmer's market. Can you avoid doing the rock breaking? In comparison, somebody with a nail gun or hammers or a saw, I would assume that although that you can hear that, that's not as irritating of noise as somebody breaking a jackhammer breaking the rock. So to me, it's again, this coordination and working together to see what is happening on what days and what can we avoid doing on those days.
So the intention, as soon as that fence goes up, is to work 6, possibly 7 days a week until this is finished.
That, yes, that is that's very common, that we would be there. Something may be going on. Now, there may be things inside the building that you may not even know that are going on on a Saturday or a Sunday. So depending on what the structure, where we're at on working on the structure, yes, we typically work 6 days a week, and it's not uncommon for some people to be there on a Sunday as well.
And I'm thinking of ahead as well. I know that
Mhm.
I'm thinking more summer. When do you think work time will be over? During the week or on a weekend? Is it a 5 o'clock? Are you working till 7 or 8 or 9?
Typically, on the weekends, the work ends early, such as a 3 o'clock, 3:30. They don't work 10-hour days or 12-hour days. During the summertime, for us to be working 10, 12 hours a day is not uncommon. So, and generally, start time is the 7 o'clock-ish. And during the fall and early spring, when the sun's not out late at night, that the time frame gets crunched back a little bit. But during I'll say the heat of the summer, yeah, for us to be there 10, 12 hours a day, or seeing trucks arrive at 5 o'clock or 5:30 in the morning is not uncommon. But again, we know that we can't be doing noisy activities on the outside of the building in non-working hours. But it's our hope, and our interest to work with the community. We don't want to be bulls in a china shop. We want to work with you. So that's why the week, they're going to start out weekly. Then maybe they go to bi-weekly meetings. Jerry will be here every week. He'll be hearing what the concerns are of the community. He'll be trying to respond to those concerns and be trying to communicate and work with the community, including the business community, on what is happening and what can be done to cure any significant issues.
If I'm looking at this correctly or understanding it, the loudest part will be phase one, about 4 months.
The question was the loudest.
The loudest, all the jackhammers and
I would say that I'm going to say generally, yes, that is probably the
I mean,
loudest.
here and there, we might have it on some days, but the bulk of it will be in those first 4 months.
Correct. The demolition and the bedrock removal are typically the loudest events. Now, keep in mind that we may be going through the demolition, I'm going to call it the bulk rock removal. And then you won't hear it for many weeks. And then all of a sudden, one day, somebody needs to put a pipe through the floor. And so they have to jackhammer a trench through. And, I'll make this up, but it wouldn't surprise me that somebody's inside the garage. Garage is up and all of a sudden somebody's running a jackhammer. And that just sounds like it's echoing inside a concrete box and it's coming out
That's
the
what I'm
open.
worried about. And
Yeah.
I live in Oswego, so I watched that construction go up and it went up very, very quickly, but it's a much wider open area where it's not bouncing off the buildings like it will be
Yes,
right
Mhm.
across the street from me. So
For sure.
yes. So it's just not going to be that first phase that you may hear noise. My comments or concerns is that all of a sudden, some part later on during construction and nobody knows, and all of a sudden something's happening on a Saturday and I'll pick on a plumber, he shows up and he's running his jackhammer. Okay, so it's going to be like, oh my gosh, what's going on? And at that point, it's I almost don't want to call it an emergency, but a contact to Jerry. Hey, Jerry, there's an event going on. What's going on inside?
So
the
these are
building?
not going to be things that are communicated to us ahead of time. They may just pull this out and
Why don't we establish that with Jerry to say Saturday from 8 to 12 is a time when we would like to avoid
quiet.
the noisiest work. And so if something comes up and it can be scheduled otherwise, he can do that. If something comes up that is on an emergency basis that does need to be done during that time, then that gives the city the opportunity to communicate to businesses that.
Well, I'm
things are
also
gonna be
thinking
different
about
this
other
week.
events as well. So if we're going to be communicating on a weekly basis, it would be nice if, let's say John's having karaoke night, it's kind of hard to sing over,
Right.
a bunch of noise going on directly across the street. So that
I don't think it's going to be during karaoke time, but you never know. If there's an
No.
emergency, it might be.
if they're working until 7.
Right.
But at the same time, I would hope that maybe during karaoke night that some of the construction workers stop over during karaoke.
Grab a microphone.
Right. And it's not uncommon to see construction workers in restaurants, especially, at the bar.
Dave, Laura, that was also a question online regarding noise and how to do a good job of pretty much communicating when they can expect these noisiest times of a construction project. So if there's a way for us to work together to establish when those working hours are, whether it's giving us something to post as we share in a weekly updates or how we disseminate the information, if we can kind of have that kind of timeline to share with our businesses and the community, that would be great.
Sure, that's probably something that we can address in those weekly meetings and also the weekly news that goes out in terms of what type of work is expected in the next week.
Okay. And the other question, because we talked about this a little bit with the question in person here at this meeting, is regarding farmers market and its existence on River Street during construction. Number one, will I still be able to be on River Street? And number two, if there is no electric, coming from the existing garage to support farmers market, is there electric that can be installed somewhere else for the event to happen?
So the construction will not impact North River Street for the most part at all. Perhaps during that period of time when the decorative brick is being removed and or replaced at the corner of State and North River, a truck may need to be there to load or unload some of those materials, but we can certainly try to avoid that being during the farmer's market. And the electric for the farmer's market doesn't actually come from the public parking garage. It is in planters, permanent planters that are along North River Street. And so there should be no disruption of availability for electric for the farmer's market.
Thank you. When we're finished with the questions with in person, I do have questions that should be addressed from the online community.
Okay, feel free.
All right, so one of the questions is, where can tenants park overnight when this construction project is taking place?
Great question. We're going to continue with the same policy, which is anybody who is a resident of the downtown mixed use district can obtain an overnight parking pass. And they would have needed that for the current public parking garage and any other parking lots. So it's the same policy. You contact the Batavia Police Department and or you can go online to their webpage and apply for the monthly parking pass.
Okay, thank you. The other question is regarding garbage. And this has been expressed amongst many people and as a concern. Is there a direct plan regarding garbage pickup during this project?
Yeah, there are 3 businesses who will be affected by when the fence goes up, that where they ordinarily put their garbage, they won't be able to put it there. And so the city has reached out to all 3 of those parties to work with them to find an alternate during the period of construction.
Okay. The other question is, how long is parking going to be allowed on the Larsen Becker lot?
It will be allowed throughout the construction, and then the city is going to keep that parking lot online until we are satisfied that the new parking deck is sufficient to accommodate the needs for downtown parking. There is no overnight parking allowed without a permit. So other than that, are posted times for parking in the lots, but we don't have sufficient police personnel to be able to enforce the parking limit, the hour limitations. So we do that on a basis of if somebody reports, hey, this vehicle has been sitting in the same parking space for all day, every day, or it's been there for 3 days. Somebody needs a microphone right here.
Anybody is listening, there is a lot of parking on a river. That's one of the things that I think that there is. There's that Larsen Becker parking lot is great. But is there, like, one of the things that I've heard about from people is, especially like pulling up to, I'll just pull one up real quick. Katrina's, there's a lot of ladies that get dropped off right up there to go into Katrina's, older folks.
Right.
Is there some of those parking there are spots where you can park along river. Is there any way that those could be like maybe specially designated as handicapped spots? I'm just throwing it out there. I don't know legality or whatever, but you know, there are spots right by, there's a few by Bar Revolution. And then Missy has some spaces over there, but she uses that for a pickup. But then they're also right where that parking garage is, or where it is for now. There's a couple of spots. Is there any way to make those like specially designated for handicapped folks? I get a lot of older ladies that want to come into the shop, and I tell them where they can park in those different areas, stuff like that. So just maybe some kind of more special designation or more focus for handicapped individuals for those specific areas at certain times, maybe.
You know, And I know that I'm going to have to research this a little bit more. When the WNRF was first created, I think that there were at least one or more handicapped spaces that then subsequently were removed because it caused problems. Jeff knows.
Yeah, I mean, one of the issues with designating them as handicapped is that prevents anybody else from parking there. So I mean, it restricts them to just somebody who has the handicap placard or the handicap plate. So, you know, I think, you know, probably we can look at other
Yeah.
methods to maybe, you know, personal, or I don't want to say personalized, but, you know, designate those for other things, but I'm not sure handicap is necessarily the way to go, because that only restricts it to somebody who specifically has those placards or plates, and it eliminates anybody else from parking.
And I do know that issue for Katrina. I'll talk to her about that and see if there's, you know, some way that we can try to accommodate that for her. Thank you. Yes, Beth. Yes.
So if you're saying that there's going to be between 50 and 100 workers there on average, where is the designated parking for those folks?
We do not have designated parking yet, but we are going to have to make a determination where they're will probably utilize some part of the Larsen Becker parking lot, which for the most part, yeah, just have them head way north, start from the north
That
and
was
fill
my
in south.
assumption, is that we would designate the furthest north where
Yeah.
the construction workers may
Great question.
walk a couple blocks or block or two.
Mhm.
That was my assumption.
So would the Larsen Becker lot be a feasible option as well, to have that
Oh,
designated?
that's actually the one they were talking about,
Okay.
but just to use the northmost parking spaces
Okay.
first and to fill in south so that the spaces closest to the businesses remain open for customers.
Okay, do we know how many parking spaces are gonna be available during the project in Larsen Becker?
I think the Larsen Becker parking lot is 110 spaces. Does that sound right, Jeff?
Yeah, it's pretty close. I'm not sure.
About 110.
Okay, but available, how much would that be available of those 110 spaces? during
All
the
of
project?
them are available, so it just depends how many workers show up that day,
Okay,
subtracted from 110.
okay,
And then that would be mainly during if you look over at Larsen Becker now, there's probably 3 cars there. So they skedaddle when the businesses get the busiest on North River Street.
thank you.
Sure. Any other online questions?
Parking possibly like on the, like when you excavate, like, will they be able to park on the dirt? I mean, 100 cars and 110 car parking lot is pretty much the entire parking lot. If at max, they're all there. But I mean, that's a lot of spaces. So I didn't know if they're able to use some of the land that you'll be building on.
Some vehicles will end up in the construction zone. But also keep in mind that when we say 100 workers, that doesn't mean that every worker drives themselves. So again, I know there's some people don't like the comparison to Oswego, but the parking was tight in Oswego as well. And it's a very similar size project, similar shape, similar footprint. And we were able to work through it without a lot of disruption to the downtown businesses of down in Oswego. And is it going to take some coordination? Yes, it will. And the number of employees and the number of cars is going to vary throughout that 2-year period. Once the garage starts to get some percentage complete, there is an opportunity for more vehicles to be construction-related vehicles to be inside the garage. So
Assuming if it ever became a problem, we know who to reach out to.
exactly.
Mhm.
And I would expect that as the number of employees or workers on the site increase, there may be some different issues that populate along the way. And again, having the weekly, bi-weekly meeting will hopefully be able to have open communication and then address those issues.
Laura, we do not have any more online questions at this time.
Okay.
However, I would like to eventually compile a list because some of the chat here has some really interesting ideas, and perhaps I can get that in a document and share that with staff so that we can coordinate those ideas too and run it past the team here.
Absolutely. I'm looking at my chat to Alderman Vogelsinger. I'd just like to share her comment with those who are in the room here, that as she was listening to the conversation, it's quite clear how supportive these business owners are of each other. They're sharing their concerns of their business, but also regularly mentioning their neighbors and other businesses' needs. And that's beautiful to see. And thank you all for your time. But we certainly will be compiling all of this so that even those of you who are participating here in person will be able to see that. Another thing that I've seen in the chat that perhaps is worthy of discussion among the businesses that would benefit, who have sort of carry out service, is establishing some type of general pickup area during construction that might be able to assist your businesses, but we can have some further discussion on that. So there being no other questions online, does anybody have any other questions or comments that they would like to make before we close the meeting?
Laura, do we need to schedule a time for the next meeting, especially understanding of the next couple weeks of holidays?
Yeah, I'd like to perhaps schedule a follow-up meeting from this. I'm wondering if maybe even next Wednesday, same time and place. That way it's after the Christmas week. Do you think those business owners who are here or those online, do you think that would be a benefit to people to come here and have this chat with us and an opportunity to ask questions? Like next Wednesday at 9. I'm not saying that you would come back, James. I'm saying for people who weren't able to make this meeting. So it looks like shaking head no. So I'll reach out to the community and find out if they want that additional meeting, and if there's any interest, then we'll certainly set that up.
Okay.
But I want to thank everybody for your time here today. I can tell a little bit by body language that I perhaps haven't convinced you of the fact that I really want to help your businesses make it through construction. And perhaps there's nothing that I could say that would convince you. But one of the things that I will say is that I'm a Batavian. I've lived here for 20 years. I love this community. I support small business. And I'm going to be looking for every way to help you through all of this. So thank you very much. I appreciate your time today.